Hey everybody, this is going to be the Tibetan Wheel tutorial. Um, so as you can see in the ref, we're going to go ahead and make this thing here in Zbrush. I'm going to leave some of this stuff out, but go over most of the basics here um, to get this kind of look of a wheel. So let's get started on this guy. So obviously we could do this in a couple different ways, but I'm just going to show you a way we can do this in Zbrush. So to start out, let's go ahead, get an object in here. We're going to be using some of the new features in Zbrush 4R8, so if you don't have that, you might as well stop now because you're not going to be able to follow this. So what we're going to do is grab a polyplane after we make a primitive here. So I'm just clicking this little gizmo guy and making a polyplane. So we can see all the way down in here. And what we can do with this object is make different resolutions as far as how we want our polys to be laid out. So we're just going to go with that, go back into our draw mode, and I'm going to unify this guy, which is going to make it just a bigger areas for us to work with. I'm going to turn the floor off, polyframe here. So we're going to divide this guy up. First we're going to divide it without smooth on a couple times so we can keep our edges relatively clean. If you have smooth turned on when you do your initial subdivision, it'll smooth these edges out, so we don't want that. So now we've got our polyplane here. I've got an alpha that I've already made. This is just made in Photoshop, just simple font. So we're going to need to apply this to our masking tool here, and we're going to change some settings. So first off, let's grab the alpha, and then you can see for stroke, we're going to want to make a drag rectangle stroke. Actually, not even that. We're going to just go with rectangle. And with rectangle, we can choose center and square. Let's just try center, which is basically going to draw your mask out from a center point. So what we'll do is we'll just go in here, kind of get our look kind of similar to what we saw in the reference. This won't be exact because I have no idea what that font is, but I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot. So now that our surface is masked, we're going to go down here to deformation and inflate, and we are going to inflate just on the z-axis. What that's going to do is push these guys out here. So let's just do a little inflate. So you can see one of the problems that you're going to run into. Move in here. You're going to get this kind of jaggy edge look from an alpha. So one thing we can do to combat that is we can just hold down Control and click, and that's going to smooth the alpha, and then hit Alt, and that's going to constrain it again. That can help with some of the edge anti-aliasing that we're coming across here. But we're going to fix it anyway, so let's just keep going. So I'm going to clear, whoop, don't want to do that just yet. So we are going to polish this guy. Let's see what happens with this. Might need to do it with the mask off. Just give it a minute here. And one of the new things you can do is with far right is you can use a text object. I just didn't want to get into that with this tutorial. Let's try a polish by features, see what that gives us. It's a little better. Let's try maybe a smooth first. Let's clear this mask off and then do a polish by features. Yeah, that works for us for what we want to do. Now I'm just going to trim off the areas of this piece that I don't need. Just looking at the reference, I'm just going to carve off some of this stuff. There we go. I'm using a custom menu here, but it's basically you're going to do delete hidden, which we're going to have to pull these subdivisions off first, delete those, and then under modified topology, there's the delete hidden button. When you see this menu come up, it's just a custom menu that I've made, and I'll try to point out where all these buttons are in their normal menus. So we've got our piece here. That is this. So let's go ahead and do a bend on this guy. So I'm just going to go to the move tool, and if you guys don't have this gizmo under transform, I believe you gotta have this little gizmo 3D highlighted. If you don't, it'll just use the old transpose. So if you don't see your gizmo, this is where it's at. It's under transform. Click that button. So we are going to use a bend arc on this guy. This is part of the new deformation tools in Zbrush. So we are going to go ahead and bend this guy along this axis. So you can see as I move this around, it bends. If you hold down Shift, it'll click to a certain degree. Like if I hold down Shift here, you can see it's kind of snapping. And then we're going to want to mess around with the radius a bit. This is just kind of really just kind of fiddling around with these until you get the shape that you're looking for. I think that's about the right radius. We're not going to be super exact. I'm just kind of getting you through the techniques here. That looks about the right radius. So now we have one piece here. One thing you may notice is that you'll get a little kind of break here where the bend tool meets where it wrapped all the way around. Typically you can just do a weld points and that'll just get rid of it. It's just basically welding this little seam that was left over. Let's see here. So now we've got our one piece. So our reference has these kind of three pieces stacked up. So let's go ahead and do that. In the subtools, we'll just duplicate and move these guys down. And I'm going to rotate. See if I can get this rotation to work. Okay, that worked. So all I did was just hit the go to unmask mesh center, which is just going to reorient this gizmo to the center of this object. And then I'm going to go ahead and just turn them. And then I'm going to duplicate again, bring it down, turn it again. So there we go. There is our wheel. I'm going to try this, see if it works. It may not work. I'm going to merge these down and then try a weld points. May not work, might work. Let's just give it a shot here. Yeah, didn't do it. We can try to increase this distance. Yeah, it's gonna give us errors, so we're not gonna mess with that. So what we can do now that we've got this, we can do a couple things. Let's just try first by making a cylinder, and then we'll project the detail of this onto the cylinder, so we get a whole object. Let's give that a shot. First, this may not work. It might work. Let's just see what happens. Make a cylinder. Select the cylinder. We're going to scale that down. And basically we're just going to try to find, we're going to fit this guy just to the outside of this other cylinder so we can trap all that detail when we do a projection. Let's see if we can get this to work here. Looks pretty close. Might need to scale it down just a bit just so we can squeeze all that detail in there. Scale it up a bit. Alright, let's give this a shot. So we'll go to our cylinder here. We're going to solo the cylinder. Let's polyframe it. So I'm going to want to smooth this guy, and one thing I'm going to do first is crease these outer edges so they don't smooth out. So I'm going to hit B, Z, M. That's the Zmodeler brush, and then I'm going to hit the space bar. And those of you that haven't used Zmodeler, it's a pretty deep piece of part of Zbrush. So I'm just going to touch on it a few bits here and there. I suggest you go and look at the Zmodeler tutorials, but you can take a look at what I'm going to do with it now. So we're going to use an edge action, and we're going to go to crease, polyloop or edge loop complete. Then I'm going to click an edge, and you can see that that's now creased that edge. So when I turn on the dynamic subdivision, you can see that that edge is held. You can see the difference between the two. So uncreased or creased and uncreased. So you can see what that does. So I'm going to crease this guy down here, and you can see that there's a little line that indicates that there's a crease change, just in case you wanted to know what that little line was. So now I'm going to divide this up a bunch of times to around the same poly count as our original grid was. And then I am going to roll down this project and project all. We are going to see if this works first before I do it the right way. Let's just give it a second here just to see if we've got our cylinder distance correct. This may take a second. Alrighty, let's see what we got here. Looks like it's kind of working a little bit, but not that great. So let's try this again. So I'm going to go down to my geometry, lower my subdivisions all the way down. I'm going to go ahead and increase the projection distance a little bit and hit project all. And then I'm going to go up to my next subdivision level and do a project all. I'm just going to divide this, project all, divide, project all again, continuing on. And you can see we're getting these little ridges in here. that's fine because we're going to put some sculpting in there anyways. Let's divide, project all. And that is probably, that's enough for us for where we're at in this tutorial. So now I'll just go up here, grab this guy, delete it. Okay, so now what we've got now is a piece of solid geometry that we can sculpt on with multiple subdivision levels. So let's knock out these. Let me go back up to a white. Hello, there we go. These little guys here, these ridges that we saw, we're going to use our transform, activate symmetry. We're going to do symmetry on Y, we're going to do radial, and we're going to crank the count up. Now we can see that. No, let's go. Let's do a standard brush here. It looks like this is not where we want it on the floor, so let's just double check our orientation. Yeah, so we've moved off to the side here. So one thing that you can do to fix this, to get your object at center, is just hit unify. So now you can see we're at center and everything is great with our symmetry. Looking at this reference, I think just a clay buildup was probably going to work for us. So I'm just going to hit B, C, B. There's clay buildup. And let me get my tablet out here. And we are going to start doing a little sculpting. Make it much smaller. Oops. So basically we want, I think I'm going to have to increase this radius. This tool, I'm just going to go nuts, go 100. Now we're just going to kind of build up these little bars here. Pretty simple. Now what I would do is I'm just going to go in and just smooth this out a bit. There we go. Alright, so we've got all of this stuff in there. Move this a little bit more. We have a bit of a cap on the top here, so I'm just going to try to see what we can do just to make it, give it some kind of ornamental style. Maybe something like that. So what we can do to get that top part, you can see in a reference, we can't really see what that is, but I'm just going to create one anyways. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this. We'll just go ahead and rename it. We'll just call this body. And we'll call this cap. And with our cap, we're just going to go through and delete everything but this top part here. Again, do a delete hidden. I am going to Go ahead and delete all the subdivisions off this guy. And now I'm just going to turn off symmetry. Going to go back to my Zmodeler brush, so BZM. And I'm going to QMesh this whole island. So it is flat island, QMesh, just kind of pull this up. And then let's try an offset or an inset with these guys. Let's do flat island again. Inset here. It's kind of what we want. I'm going to move this center point up just to kind of give us some area here that we can sculpt with. Oh, not sure what happened there. That works. And then we're going to Dynamesh this. Maybe a little bit more resolution in a Dynamesh. Works for me. Then we're going to switch back to our move brush. Whoop. And turn symmetry back on. Whoa. And we're going to start. Let's bring intensity down on this. We're just going to start sculpting out the top here. And I'm just winging it because I have no idea what this thing looks like. Let's go to back to clay build up. Just kind of make some kind of fancy something here. So this happens sometimes with Dynamesh. So when things get too thin. So I'm going to back up on all these edits that I've done here. And so one thing we're going to want to do is do some auto masking, or we can just do a mask. So let's just go to mask, rectangle. I'm just going to mask this part out and then invert it. So now when I edit this stuff, we're not affecting the bottom, so our Dynamesh will work. So let's see, let's go back to what we were doing. Turn this radial symmetry down so we can just kind of sculpt some stuff in here. Oops. I'm going to up my Dynamesh resolution again. Switch to damn standard. Just going to carve some of this stuff out. Good enough. Works for me. You can go nuts on this. Yeah, I cleared my mask off, but that's all right. you can kind of go crazy. It looks like this lip is a little bit thinner than we've got, so I'll just smooth it out. And then you could always just kind of move these edges around to just make it look a little bit more natural in here. All right, top's done. So let's go ahead, move this down. Let's just double check where we're at. Solo, good. So the last part we're gonna do is this base here, this little spinny wheel base. And we were gonna do that with array mesh and Zmodeler. So first things first, let's append in a cylinder 3D. Solo that guy for now. Let me see if I can Q cylinder. Okay, this is what we'll do. We use this. So basically, I'm just initializing this to a Q cylinder because I want to control the resolution here. I think I want up to 4 maybe. Let's see what's going on. It's not going to work. All right, let's go back. Step back to primitive here. So let's delete this guy. Okay, and then we're going to go into our tools, click on here, and then we're going to find our cylinder 3D. And we're going to watch Zbrush crash. Great. Hopefully that's a good lesson. Always save. Because I have a feeling that we just lost all of our stuff here. Let's just see all of our progress. Maybe Zbrush will have saved us from what we were doing. Maybe, maybe not. Ah, good. So it saved everything but the cap, which we don't have to worry about because it was finished. Let me just make sure this is still intact. Okay, it's good. Okay. So let's save this. I'll just save it here. And let's start on that base again. So I've appended in our cylinder, and what basically using a primitive will allow you to do is adjust this stuff down here, all these things. So we're going to pull this down to, let's see, let's try 8. Yeah, 8 works. And then the rest of the stuff doesn't matter. Then we're going to make this a polymesh 3D. I'm going to grab this stuff, delete it, delete hidden, and then I'm going to unify this thing just to get it back down to 0, and that's what I want. So next we're going to go into array mesh, which is in the array mesh drop down here. I'm going to click array mesh, and then I'm going to edit some of these settings. So first you can see there's 4 spokes to this guy, so I want 4 different pieces, 4 different little notches. So we'll go to rotate, and we know it's 360 degrees, so we'll rotate 360 degrees. We want 4 of them, which we've got here. And now we're going to start messing with this pivot. So we can do an X or Y. I think Y works for us. So you just want to approximate the size of the wheel. I'm just gonna kind of guess. We'll just say around there. I'm gonna turn this floor off too. Turn off extrude. I think all the rest of this should work just great. So I'm going to click Make Mesh. So now there we go. We've got these wonderful notches. I'm going to go back to the Zmodeler brush, and we're going to do an edge action, bridge, and I'm going to go through and bridge these guys to make our wheel. So there's our wheel. One thing we can do, that doesn't matter. So next we're going to Q mesh. We're just going to do it on all polygons to give this some depth. There we go. That doesn't really, let's step back here. I think I'm missing. Yeah, I'm looking at the reference. These spokes go in a cross pattern. So this is one great thing about Zmodeler. We can just redo it real quickly. Let's go here to here. Before that, let's insert an edge loop here and here. I'm just creating an edge for these guys to connect to. So now I'm gonna go here, go back to our bridge, 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 and then we're gonna Q mesh again. So there's our wheel. Maybe a little bit bigger. We'll just go to about there. So we also have this little spoke that comes out of the bottom. For that guy, we're going to go into Zmodeler. We're going to go into our point actions and do a split. And I'm going to split this point. And then I'm going to Q mesh this. I'm going to Q mesh this as a polygroup island. You can see there's a polygroup in here. And I'm just going to pull this down. Another thing we can do to kind of shape this is we can do an insert, edge loop, multi loops, interactive elevation. We'll do a radial. So push up or move up on the mouse, create spans. Left to right will create a kind of a swoopy look to it. We'll just, because we're just kind of guessing here on like what this should even look like. And there we go. We can see that when we subdivide this, it's a little bit soft. So let's crease some edges here. Let's try edge loop complete. This may or may, yeah, there we go. It did work right off the bat. So we're going to do that. That makes it a little bit harder. Then you could sculpt into this if you want to, but we're not gonna get that crazy with it. So now I'm gonna go back to my wheel. Then I'm gonna pin the object we just made. We're gonna pull that in there. I'm gonna grab that object, and then I'm gonna go through and do a unify, which will bring it back down to its size. Let's do a move, scale, move it on up here, do another little scale, and there we go. There we go, there's our wheel. You could easily do some like alpha stamping with these little guys if you wanted to. Definitely you want to carve more into these little gaps, that kind of stuff. and find the right font too. But that concludes our demonstration. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Hopefully that was informative, and I will see you later.